1398. 300 Majapahit warships surround the Kingdom of Singapore. They've come to settle unfinished business. Singapore is the last holdout of their old rival, Sriwijaya. This is where the Srivijayan elites ran to when the Javanese took their Sumatran ports a century before. This far-flung province, this so-called Lion City, had escaped a siege by Hayam Wuruk decades before. But that would not happen again. Majapahit would destroy it. But in doing so, they would help birth their greatest rival, the Sultanate of Malacca. A quick aside before we begin. We started episode 1 of this series with a call to aid earthquake victims in Lombok. However, as we finished this episode, an even more devastating earthquake and tsunami struck the island of Sulawesi. Once again, we've linked 2 fundraising efforts in the description. One international aid organization and another for a local effort. Any help you could give would be deeply appreciated. And now back to the show. When Majapahit raised Singapore in 1389, they appeared to be at the height of their power. True, Hayam Wuruk was 9 years dead, and multiple princes were warring for the throne, but Majapahit navies still controlled the spice trade, challenging rival Thai fleets and the occasional Chinese trade expedition. Little did they know, however, that the archipelago was entering a period of transition and realignment. But it was not a great sweeping event that would bring change. It was a small gradual one, for the kingdoms on Sumatra were increasingly converting to a new faith. It's unclear when Islam came to Indonesia, but it likely resembled the earlier diffusion of Hinduism and Buddhism through maritime networks. But even in this, it had an advantage. As a religion started by merchants, Islam was naturally portable. While Buddhism and Hinduism relied on geographically fixed elements like temples, god images, and monasteries, spreading Islam to new lands required only transporting books and cultural practices. Muslim traders had passed through Indonesia since the 8th century, but it was the 13th century before the religion gained local converts. The Malay traders of Sumatra seem to have picked it up first. They specialized in the leg of the spice trade between the Strait of Malacca and the Bay of Bengal, putting them in contact with Indianized Islam that was more compatible with their worldview than the versions practiced in the Middle East. Meanwhile, another wave came via China, where Muslims were enjoying an unusual period of lenience under the Mongol Yuan dynasty. Initial conversions were likely pragmatic. After all, common religion often greased the wheels of trade, and this new faith had intriguing things to offer, like Arabic writing, language, legal codes, and paper, which was so much more convenient than dried palm leaves. And it was these same tools of linguistic power, as well as the sweetener of greater diplomatic and trade links to Muslim kingdoms in India, that convinced local rulers to start adopting the teachings of the Prophet. In fact, this linguistic merger was so comprehensive that 15% of the words in Malay come from Arabic roots. By 1346, a flourishing Muslim trade city, the first in Indonesia, existed at the northern tip of Sumatra. And we know this from, who else but Ibn Battuta. Yup, the same Ibn Battuta from our Mali series. Seriously, this guy went, everywhere. Anyway, Ibn Battuta describes a city in transition, one with mosques and Friday prayers, but where Islam is largely a religion of merchants and elites. The easternmost city ruled by Muslims. But within a few decades, it wasn't alone. Islamic port cities were popping up all over Sumatra, but the greatest Muslim city was founded by Majapahit, by accident. Which brings us back to where we started, Singapore. Despite being only a shadow of Srivijaya's original power, the far-flung post of Singapore was crazy rich and kept the heirs of Sriwijaya in the political game. But enemies surrounded it. The aggressive Thai kingdom of Ayutthaya looming in the north, and the expansionist Majapahit in the south. Not to mention, previous invasions had weakened the Lion City. So when Majapahit breached the walls, the Raja of Singapore, a man named Paramiswara, fled to the south and started anew. This time, he would do it right. He picked a strategic location right on the Strait of Malacca, where he could control traffic running to and from India. He used the old tactics of his Srivijayan ancestors, allying with the pirates and sea nomads to create a navy that would direct ships to his court, where he could charge protection. He also converted to Islam to ease the relations with India and took a Muslim name. And he named this new city-state the Sultanate of Malacca. But not after the strait. Oh no, the other way around. We call it the Strait of Malacca because of this city. Malacca would be a new zenith for a Muslim kingdom in Southeast Asia, and a powerful state that cast its sphere of influence to the surrounding maritime ports. But to attain that height, Paramiswara needed one last step to secure Malacca, a tributary ally to keep the larger powers off its back. He turned